a flagship interactive program, Burning Issues. I am Omale Oroko, glad to be back after a 1 month hiatus. And I hope you are doing just fine. Burning Issues is a program that puts on the front burner of discourse local, national, and international issues that impact Nigeria and Nigerians. Thursday last week, 17th July 2025, was observed globally as World Day of International Justice, also called International Criminal Justice Day. It is a day set aside by the United Nations to mark the anniversary of the Rome Statute of 17 July 1998, the founding treaty of the International Criminal Court (ICC), which seeks to protect people from genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, and the crime of aggression. On the show this morning, our focus is on the administration of the International Criminal Justice Treaty, to which Nigeria is a signatory, and how its implementation can help or is helping to bring about a more peaceful and just world for all peoples on the planet. In the studios this morning, we have a Makudi-based legal practitioner, Barrister Timothy Amartimin, joining us to interrogate issues surrounding the international international justice generally. Thanks, Barrister, for joining us this morning.
Thank you for bringing me back again.
Okay. I would just like us to begin by asking you to speak more to what these international crimes are and why it became necessary for the international community to take action against these crimes. Let's begin by knowing what the crimes are all about.
All right. Thank you very much. You gave a very wonderful, insightful introduction as to what World International Justice Day is. In fact, it is the Day of International Criminal Justice, and it is observed every year on the 17th day of July. So it marks the anniversary of the adoption of the Roman Statute in 1998. The treaty established the International Criminal Court of Justice, the first permanent international court designed to prosecute individuals for genocides, crimes against humanity, war crimes, and crime of aggression. So the purpose of the day is that it seeks to promote international criminal justice and support the work of the International Criminal Justice Court. Now, it creates awareness about the importance of justice in securing lasting peace and stability in the world generally. And that equally includes countries, because the world will not exist without the member countries. There is equally the need to honor victims of serious international crimes and reaffirm global commitment to ending impunity across the world. So July 17th is very important because on that day, 120 countries of the world at the diplomatic conference in Rome came together, converged. That paved way for the establishment of the International Criminal Court of Justice in The Hague, Netherlands, which officially began functioning in 2002. So as we progress in the course of the program, we'll emphasize some other very silent issues that pertain to that day for our listeners to appreciate better.
Yeah, I spoke about the crimes themselves, the international crimes that are targeted by this treaty. Let's begin with genocide. A lot of people really do not know what the crime of genocide is. What is genocide?
In fact, it is murder in the highest level of magnitude one can think of. Situations where people are slaughtered or killed using either atomic bombs or other weapons of mass destruction, can be termed genocide, So when killings are masterminded without any legal justification, it is genocidal, action. And most often you see countries or leaders of countries, being arraigned before the ICJ over genocidal actions while the head sway. in office as leaders. So it is equally a reminder to leaders that any act of unlawful taking away of the lives of people is genocide. In fact, if you ask some scholars, some legal scholars, they will tell you that currently what is even happening about the herdsmen killing in Benue State and other parts of northern Nigeria is genocidal action by the herdsmen that needs to be treated as such. Because when people are killed in large numbers without any lawful justification, in broad daylight, at night, people in their deep sleep are murdered by hereditary, herdsmen, is genocidal, and leaders should be mindful of the fact that for their inaction, because crime composed of two things, the act of commission or omission. So failure to act to avert some of these crimes can be, can attract, prosecution before the International Criminal Justice Court. So people must appreciate that fact. In fact, there seems to be a synergy between more of an interrelated relationship between genocide and crimes against humanity, because when humans are treated like commodities in the marketplace, when we don't have sanctity for human lives, when such crimes are aimed at taking away or alienating human lives or existence, they are termed crimes against humanity. And then you see currently what is happening in Ukraine and Russia, between Ukraine and Russia. One can term that as war crimes, because without any justification, a particular country takes over or intrude or interferes with the affairs of another country without any lawful justification, and then begin to kill people, destroy properties, worth millions of dollars and all that. It can safely be described as war crimes. And then aggression is one aspect of it.
Yeah, that is.
Yes.
I'm coming to the
All right.
Aggression, the crime of aggression.
Yes.
I'm sure your explanation just now includes the crime of aggression.
Yes.
The planning, preparation, and the execution of an act of aggression by a state against another without any just cause.
In fact, when there are dissenting voices, which is the fundamental right of citizens to express themselves, either to condemn or applaud any government policy, and then there are plans on the part of government to suppress these people to the point of even killing people, maiming people, because you want to suppress their opinion on subject matters that affects them. Safely, one can term that as aggression. So it is these are the crimes. Genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, and aggression are those crimes that are under the jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court. And our leaders must be mindful, and the citizens too must appreciate the fact that these are crimes that the world condemns. These are crimes that, as we celebrate the World International Justice Day, we are reminded that these acts are still perpetrated around the globe. And there is every need to nip these acts in the bud as early as possible, so that we'll maintain and re-establish that humanity in the minds of people and in our public governance, system.
All right. Let's talk about the administration of these international crimes that have been assigned by over 120 countries, like you just said, including Nigeria. Yes. The treaty has been signed by these countries, and like you said, the court has been in action now for almost 50 years. The question, however, is the administration of these international crimes. There are those who are of the view that the administration or the prosecution of these crimes is skewed towards the less developed leaders of the less developed countries rather than to those of the developed ones. We're looking at cases like those of ex-Liberian President Charles Taylor, and several others. but that whenever the leaders of the advanced countries are seen or perceived to have committed similar crimes, like we had some in Iraq, and other hotspots, places around the world where there were wars and all that. That these crimes are not are never prosecuted against these leaders. Your take?
I agree with you completely on that issue, and the fact it has been a very disturbing trend. One cannot feign ignorance of the fact that there is a international power dynamics that play in some of his, actions. One would have expected that what is happening between Russia and Ukraine, the right message should have been passed by the international community, and necessary sanctions meted out to the party who is the aggressor.
But in fairness,
yes.
the International Criminal Court has a warrant out for President Putin for a couple of international crimes committed during the war.
In fact, if you look at one of the challenges of the International Criminal Court is that countries have their sovereignty as nations. Apart from countries that are signatory to this convention that gave rise to the establishment of the International Criminal Court, you will see that, in fact, even in Nigeria today, we have Section 12 of the Constitution that requires that any international treaty signed into must be domesticated for it to have effect in Nigeria. So mere signing of such treaty without it passing through the National Assembly does not gain applicability in Nigeria. And these are some issues that affect some of these international treaties in diplomatic and international relations as far as nations are concerned. And then you look at the issue of sanctions. How effective are these sanctions when one look at it? Now, like Putin, okay, you issue a warrant of arrest on him and he doesn't leave Russia. What then do you do? You can't come into Russia and effect any arrest on Putin. So these are some challenges with the jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court. And then you see that most times the sledgehammer is more on developing countries.
The same scenario, goes for Benjamin Netanyahu.
Yes.
The ICC has a warrant out for him. He visits America and other countries where they say they will not arrest him because they do not recognize that warrant.
Yes, and this for me is one double standard that most of the advanced countries are very guilty of. Because if you ask me, if you look at what is happening between Israel and Palestine, you begin to ask, come on, in the 21st century, nations will set their ballistic weapons and then begin to launch them and attack innocent citizens, kill them in large numbers, and then we'll watch. And then people come on television and radio to justify some of these actions under whatever pretext they have, and then nothing is done. So at the moment, the world international peace is endangered with the actions of some of the major players who, if you ask me, are more powerful security-wise. They have developed themselves to a point that even sanctions may have little or no effect on them because they are self-reliant on their own. And most times you see even some of the allies supporting them. So it's a matter of interest. So at the end of the day, justice is not really, enhanced or promoted the way it should be. But we expect a situation where the world will agree on what is justice, what is fair, what is wrong, irrespective of which country is involved and the leaders who are perpetrating some of this action. It is by so doing that together we can build a good and a fairer society where justice thrives. Because nations must appreciate the fact that they have the right to uphold human rights and the rule of law. Now, what justification do you have to now intrude or invade another country with the aim of annexing that country, in this 21st century, when people have the right of succession, people can, succeed from a country to another country of their choice, insofar as they have agreed unanimously on that issue. So we shouldn't be doing things that at the end of the day will portray us as people who are not truthful, as people who do not have respect for human rights. Because of the truth, the global fight against impunity for most of these serious crimes, for me, is not really getting the desired attention. With recent development is what is happening between Russia and Ukraine, and then what is happening between Israel and the Palestinians. And Gaza, you see the situation in Gaza, the humanitarian situation there, where little children are being emaciated as a result of poor nutrition,
And actually dying.
and then you see on a daily basis women being killed, and there are even instances where even in hospitals and other diplomatic buildings that are supposed to be protected under international law being bombed because, according to the aggressors, there are some element of those who attacked them, no form of retaliation, no form of reprisal attack should justify whatever action a country takes against another under the international convention we are talking about. And then there is every need for us to strengthen national and international justice system, because of the truth, a situation where of many countries we have in the world, only 120 countries were signatories to this. That clearly tells you that for those who are not party to this, the treaty is not binding on them. It's not binding on them. And in fact, even for those who were signatories to this treaty, if they are not domesticated locally or nationally, it has no effect. So it can only be persuasive for those signatories that, okay, it's behoves of you to respect the gentleman agreement you entered into, because it has no legal backing in your country and
it's
enforceability.
unfortunate, really, that many of the advanced countries are not signatories to the treaty, the ICC treaty. I know of the United States. I know of China. These are superpowers today, and because they are not signatories, like you said, they cannot be held accountable under the treaty.
And I think it's deliberate.
Yeah.
It's deliberate because these nations have an agenda that maybe the world may not share in, or some other countries may not be okay with. We have many other international organizations where you see most of the world powers not members of such organization. For instance, OPEC. You have United Nations, not a member, though one of the rich oil producing countries of the world.
Okay, talking of the United States.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So when you talk about the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, you see just some
Russia.
few countries exactly, being members of such bodies, and then the world powers will stay away from it. So if truly there is that commitment, if there is that political will on the part of the world leaders to respect some of these treaties that are carefully designed and aim to promote human rights nationally and internationally, they should, as a matter of necessity and urgency, commit themselves to some of these treaties, so that at the end of the day, we shouldn't be paying lip service to the issue of justice and respect for human rights. We shouldn't be talking about human rights when we sit and watch what Israel is doing to the Gaza people, haven't occupied Gaza for a very long time, haven't taken control. In fact, there are situations that are even very mind-blowing and disturbing, because there are times Israel will decide to disconnect water supply to Gaza.
Electricity.
Exactly.
Electricity, water.
So you have a
medical.
needs. In fact, if Israel decides that no country access Gaza, it stands. So they will just place a blockade, and then no other country accesses Gaza.
All right. Let me talk about the issue of these serious violations of international humanitarian law, often refers to as the laws of war that occur during an armed conflict. A lot of people I know, including many of our listeners, may not be aware that even in war, there is international law that guards the prosecution of wars. Can you just speak a little to that?
In fact, most times when you watch what happened at the global stage, you are very worried because there are rules of war. In fact, if, for instance, children and women are not even supposed to be killed during war, and if, for instance, someone is fighting a war and he surrenders,
with his hands,
yes, with his hands
up.
You're not supposed to kill that person. These are some rules of war, and journalists are supposed to be protected. During war. So when you see journalists being killed for reporting the war events, it's a violation of the international law. As far as the issue of war is concerned. So there are set rules that govern human conduct generally, and that of war too. There are rules governing them. And then if you watch what is happening, if you're talking about Russia, if you're talking about Israel and all that, you see gross violation of rules of war as far as this wars or execution of aggression by these countries are concerned. So it's very disturbing, and at the moment, it seems the world is just watching and doing nothing as human lives are being lost. And that accounts for why, even when nations internally have security challenges, which most times strive when leaders in those countries do nothing to control them or checkmate them, the world still stands and watch. So if the sanctity of lives, human lives, is debased to this level, then one wonders what will happen in the next generation, because the younger generation is watching, and most times when I watch some of the reports revolving around these wars, I begin to worry, because a child who grew up in a war zone only to see the father and mom and other family members killed in that war, you take a lot of work to do to reformat the mindset of that child. So we are indirectly breeding potential terrorists who, for the sake of avenging the death or killings of their loved ones, in cold blood and right before their eyes, it's, for me, one of the greatest undoing. The level we have descended as human beings, the level to which we can kill without looking back, the level to which we can display our might before our fellow humans. And then when you see other natural disaster happen, then we are helpless. I watched the flood situation. Was it in Florida or one of these American states?
Texas?
Yes, Texas, correct. And then I sat back and asked, with all the might you have, hundreds of people died in that flood incident. So we should channel more of our resources and intellect towards preserving the earth than destroying the earth and then those who live in it. Because at the end of the day, if you look at the effect, the environmental impact of some of these wars on the globe, today we talk about climate change and then other disturbing issues that are associated with such issues. And then you see deployment of bombs in such wars, executing such wars. You see a 15-story building come down in rubble just because of the use of technology and all that. And then we sit back and watch without thinking about the environmental impact. Because the technology, currently what is happening in Iraq speaks volume of that. So in the course of trying to either fight back when you are attacked, a lot of weapons are used, and those weapons have a lot of chemical, impact on the people within such areas. If you recall very well, until we have the Ikeja bomb blast, some many years ago, we never had these issues of jointed twins in Nigeria. So when you see some of these chemicals released into the environment, they have far-reaching effect on the health and living condition of people in such areas. And for some time, it seems the world has normalized some of these actions by either sitting back and watching without doing anything useful to put an end to it. That's why, for me, I must commend the South African government for approaching the International Criminal Court, that Israel should, be arraigned or should be called to account for the genocide actions, being perpetrated against the people of Gaza and crimes against humanity. And then you see there were a lot of opposition to that move by other countries. So you see that countries with their own bilateral business interest may support or may remain mute on some actions that are perpetrated by either world leaders or certain countries against fellow countries or neighbors and all that, because there are sanctions that will follow. So if you are aligned to United States, you don't want to speak on issues that affect the interests of United States, whether they are right or wrong. And that, for me, is one of the greatest undoing that the world is teaching towards, and it's not good for us.
And if you're aligned to Russia or China, for instance,
exactly.
the same thing.
Because by the time you begin to condemn what Russia is doing against Ukraine, surely the full might of the Russian government will be descended on you. In fact, there were even internal sanctions, where leaders or people of Russia who were opposed to the war had received from the government. In fact, ministers or persons who were serving in the Russian government that opposed this war, had their own fair share of it. So you see that truly justice is more of on paper than practiced globally.
Okay, from everything you've said up to this point, I just want you to give us the way forward. What is your suggestion, as it were, to ensure a more robust implementation of the administration of international criminal justice? Are you saying that this ICC treaty cannot be improved or developed in any way to make it more applicable to the signatories around the world?
And it can be better enhanced. In fact, if member states decides to form an alliance that, okay, we have areas of common interest and haven't come together and then signed a treaty, then we'll begin to work align such, block, as opposed to committing, to either bilateral relationship with other countries that deliberately abstained, or abstained from signing or committing themselves to the treaty. It will go a long way. Because of the truth, there is no country that will live and survive in isolation. So there is that need for interdependence between member countries and nations. So if there is that alignment, that political will on the part of countries that are committed to enhancing international justice by ensuring that they deal and relate with member countries and then support policies that promote international justice. It won't happen overnight. It will require a gradual process for that to happen. But if there is that political will and that commitment, that okay, because Nigeria is signatory to it, because this country B or C is signatory to it, then we'll begin to do trade or relate with such countries on the basis of that treaty. Then it will go a long way, because if there are no benefits, then there will be less willingness to take the burden of seeing to it that the treaty or the commitment of the member country bears or see the light of day. And then there is another dimension to it. The International Criminal Justice Court has some limitation, so the jurisdiction of the court needs to be expanded, to cover situations where national courts are unable or unwilling to prosecute these crimes. Because a situation where, for instance, there are crimes committed in Nigeria that are genocidal in nature, that are crimes against humanity, that are war crime in nature or aggression. And then we have the prosecutorial authority in Nigeria, reluctant or hesitant to prosecute such matters. Then the jurisdiction of the International Criminal Justice Court should be expanded to enable them to intervene in such situation. So it shouldn't be that the world will sit and watch until when the whole damage is done before we begin to talk about trial of some of these perpetrators of these actions. In fact, of a truth, human beings are more obedient and compliant for fear of sanctions. I've always maintained that position. If an American observes the laws of his land, it is because of sanctions, the consequences of action. That accounts for why the same leaders, our leaders here, who do not respect our laws, once they find themselves in Europe or US, they are compliant because they know sanctions will be meted out to them. And the case of the former Senate President, the Deputy Senate President, Ikwerimadu, his conviction and all that speaks volume of that. So you see that when countries respect their own national laws, it goes a long way in equally, portraying a very good image internationally. And then there is every need for collaboration, just like I had earlier said. And then I think the area of investigation is one area that has really suffered greatly, because for you to establish some of these crimes, it requires a lot of scientific gathering of evidence. It requires a lot, and most times when the member countries do not allow you access, it becomes difficult. As we speak, there are media houses that cannot report from Israel. Yeah, Al Jazeera cannot report from Israel, so most times they hang around the neighboring, countries to gather news arising from the war that is currently ongoing. So you see some of these challenges, and even journalists, when they are not spared, they are more set of endangered species one can ask or talk about. And then you see this aspect of journalism, for some time has been relegated, for those who go about beyond just what is reported. They go to finding exactly what happened.
As the investigative journalist.
Exactly. So you see beyond the picture of what the government wants you to believe, you go searching for facts beyond what the government wants you to believe. Because there is always that temptation to suppress the real facts. That's why for men, anytime there is any report that about 50 persons were killed, I have this notion that over 500 were killed.
Well, that's your personal opinion.
Yes.
Well, certainly it may not be correct. We'll get back to you. We'll continue with the conversation. But right now, we'll want to go over to the phone lines for our listeners to be part of the show. The program is Burning Issues, coming away from Brothers FM 90.5 Marconi. This morning, we are talking international criminal justice, and that is in light of the celebration of International Day of Criminal Justice on Thursday last week by the global community. If you want to be part of the show, call this number right now and weigh in on what we have been discussing. 0907-333-7045. 09 said with respect to to Iran, but we'll get back to you. Let's see what happened as far as international conflict is concerned.
I agree with him completely. In fact, you can't be preaching peace and at the same time you are developing weapons of mass destruction, because you do not intend to develop them and then keep them in warehouses. You need potential customers or consumers of that particular product. So situations where you see that most countries that are producing weapons, their revenue increases the more wars we have around the world. And there are people who can instigate wars. There are people who can motivate and encourage people to fight and take arms against another. Because once there is that war created, there is mass demand for those weapons. There is mass demand for it. And you see that there is a lot of purification of arms around the world. And for those who are producers, and you see the international politics that play around some of these issues. And there is someone breathing over your shoulders and telling you that you can't produce arms. Now, only a selected few can produce, right? And then they have even categorized what you can produce. So if Russia wakes up today to decide that, okay, Nigeria, I can stay there far away, use drones and launch attacks on you because of the action of some selected few. I just want to respond to what Otache, the concern he raised, about Israel and then what is happening in Gaza. It's undebatable.
He was specific about Iran. He says that Israel was.
Yes. So I want to start from Gaza before we even get into Iran.
Okay.
We all agreed that it was Hamas,
yeah,
the so-called terrorist movement in Gaza, that first attacked Israel. Now, for me, justice requires that those perpetrators would have been identified and then the right, punishment meted out to them. But at the end of the day, who are the receiving end of what is happening in Gaza? Innocent women and children who may not even support Hamas or the action or whatever philosophy or ideology Hamas supports or promotes. And you have the people of Gaza living in perpetual fear of even Hamas itself. So because of the action of Hamas, now the retaliation is affecting every Gazan. And then you have a humanitarian situation at hand. So you see that beyond just looking at, there was the first action, and then there is a response to that action. We are looking at the colossal damage, harm that war has done. And it's still ongoing. We don't even know when it will end. Now, what happened about Iran? So you see, these people wake up, and then, there was a time Iran told the whole world that they will eliminate the whole of Israel on the face of the earth. Iran said that. So Israel is always surrounded by, we can't debate it, surrounded by enemies, left, right, center. And the determination of these enemies or countries who feel at any time they can do and undo is what we're having today. So whatever angle one looks at it, these are advanced countries. And if they can wake up any day and begin to fight a neighboring country, what will be the fate of the developing nations? If today, Russia or, for instance, United States wakes up to say, we don't want this Nigerian leader. We don't want this social style of leadership. There was a time the National Assembly voted against same-sex marriage in Nigeria, and there were some economic sanctions that trailed that decision. So while we are encouraging fairness in the society, we should equally understand that there should be proportionality in response. There should be justice in all given situation. So a situation where unprovoked, even when provoked, one should be mindful of his action. So countries who, for instance, just like Emeka rightly observed, Emeka, destruction of life is not good. But you see situations where there is massive development of weapons by certain blocks or countries of the world. And these powerful nations have no respect for even the international bodies or organizations. They have no respect.
And unfortunately, it is actually the most powerful countries in the world that have the biggest arms industries in the world.
Exactly, and
they're the biggest producers
and then you
exporters. As a matter of fact,
you'll be surprised that till date we are still engaging on the conversation as to having one of the African countries in the Security Council of United Nations. So the whole thing is just for the powerful, for those powerful countries. They dictate what happened globally.
All right. Okay, we'll get back to you. Hello, good morning.
All right, so what I was saying is that whatever one angle one looks at the whole conversation,
talking about the major arms producers in the
Yes,
world.
yes. In fact, these are watchdogs of the world that have no one watching over them. They can do and undo. That's to say that the whole world is at the mercy of these world powers. Today, China can wake up that okay, we're going to attack Taiwan, and nothing happens.
But in fairness to China, since
I-
1950,
you know,
since the communist takeover,
Exactly.
China has not invaded any sovereign
Now,
country.
now, I'm just giving an example.
Yeah, I know. I want us to put it in
the
context.
likelihood of neighboring countries living in perpetual fear of the world powers, and then you have that unbalanced power sharing, where for a very long time Africa has been advocating for a seat, a permanent seat in the Security Council, where their votes will count on issues that affect the whole world and Africa as a whole. So for a very long time, we have only been, able to get only a non-permanent seat, and it's not healthy for the world peace. We should ensure that there is peace globally and there is fairness across board. And of a truth, we can't shy away from the fact that war has been part of humanity, but the management of war, there are rules of engagement, and those rules of engagement should be observed at all times. If in situations where it's inevitable, because of a truth, there are people that the only language they hear is war, and you must make plans for such kind of people, as when you seek peace with them, you're rather endangering your position. So the world must advance towards peace than war.
All right.
And for me, the
Okay.
need for accountability for serious crimes needs to be emphasized and should be promoted at all times, because it represents a global commitment to ending impunity for grave violation of human rights and humanitarian law. Because in war situations, you have copious instances of violation of human rights or humanitarian law, where the powerful parties may do and undo, and then there is no one to checkmate them. So, as we celebrate the World International Justice Day, it is a clarion call for all major actors to appreciate the fact that war does humanity no good. It rather affects humanity adversely over a long period of time. And what was built in 10 years can be destroyed in one day. And it takes a lot. In fact, psychologically, some people never recover from wars. They live with the effect of it. And the consequences are always there on the people for many years. So the world should think more about peace and harmony in the world, and then equality. Equality is very important, and for this cause, for the African leaders who always think about enriching themselves than developing their countries. Because the idea is very simple.
We're talking of some African leaders.
Yes,
We cannot
yes.
generalize here.
In fact, we have a common problem across Africa. We have a common problem. We have the problem of leadership. It's a common problem. So
No doubt about that.
Now,
because
yes.
the point being made is that there is no country in the world that doesn't have a problem of leadership.
Of course.
Even the United States.
Now,
Yeah,
there are checks. There are checks that are in place to ensure that the right thing is done in this country. We have African leaders perpetrating themselves in office. In fact, if you check the history of the world, we have one of the old people in leadership in Africa.
Talking of oldest president.
Yes, you have someone at the age of 93 insisting that he must remain in office in Africa.
But he's only 93.
Now.
What are you talking about?
So you just imagine at the age where the reasoning of some people, due to old age, cannot think well, people insisting to remain in office. In fact, just recently we have a president attend the burial, and the man could not stand. He needed a seat to sit. So
We have to wind up. We have to sign up. Barrister, please, in 2 minutes, your closing thoughts in 2 minutes.
All right.
About international criminal justice, its administration by the International Criminal Court, and the way forward.
All right.
Just summarize.
Yes.
in 2
Now
minutes.
there is every need
As
to
we
promote
close.
international criminal justice and then support the work, of the International Criminal Justice Court. There is need for us to emphasize the importance of justice in securing lasting peace and stability in the world. And then very important in the world, very important, there is need to honor victims of serious international crimes. Those that have suffered from some of these crimes should be honored. And then leaders who perpetrated this impunity should be tried and held to account for the action. It is by so doing that we appreciate the fact that there is need for peace, and then there are consequences for anyone who breaches that peace.
And it is on that note that we draw the curtains on this edition of Burning Issues with Barrister Timothy Amartime, Makurdi-based legal practitioner who today has been speaking on international criminal justice in the light of the observance of International Justice Day on Thursday last week. Thanks for joining us, Barrister, at a very short notice, I must add. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And so until Burning Issues makes a return, I am Omale Oroko saying thanks for being there. God bless and bye for now.